gets to the agenda. We have a quorum. The agenda was properly posted, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Find the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, then we have public appearances. This is public's opportunity to speak. If you are from the public, we just ask that you share your name, your address, municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes, in case we have a lot of folks who would like to speak. And we do have one wish to speak form completed from JP. It's 702 Wheelbridge Road, and this is in regards to the library parking. So JP, come on up.
Good evening and thank you. So as John mentioned, I am a resident here in the village, but I'm also speaking here on behalf of the library board. As you can see in our minutes, we did discuss this potential change to the ordinance. And so there are a few things I do want to mention, though Aaron does a really good job of presenting all the facts in the memo that is before you as part of the agenda. So one is the village library board fully supports the proposed ordinance change because it really does align with the surrounding communities. Again, Aaron does a really good job of providing the graph that shows the differences in there. So I would highly encourage you all, if you haven't had a moment to look at that, please do. Additionally, this ordinance was also mentioned as part of the village board's due diligence work when Cindy and I met with the architect and structural engineer last week as part of this process. This is one of those things that they highlighted as an item that probably should be addressed. And it's ironic that their proposed changes match what Aaron came up with as well. So that's something I wanted to share in there. It's one of those parts of the due diligence process on behalf of the library board that Cindy and I heard. And then I'm sure you all are aware of this, but I would be remiss in saying that, remember, this is regarding the ordinance. No matter whether this proposal for a library at Learning Ladder goes through or not, either way, this decision is regarding the ordinance and probably should be updated based off of everything that's been shared in there. So just want to remind you all to, again, come at it with that lens of the ordinance and not in regards to the project or the potential library at the Learning Ladder site in there. And then I will be sharing or staying for the discussion. So if there's anything that, again, within the allowable elements in there, you would like me to address, I will be around here as well. Thank you.
Thanks, JP. All right, anybody else in the room or on Zoom that wish to speak? All right, then we'll move right on. Next then is to discuss and consider our meeting minutes held back in September 11th for the Plan Commission. Any questions, comments in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next we'll move on to discuss and consider a request from Corey Clements for an approval for the Kennedy Hills First Edition preliminary plat. The plat is located at parcel 0711034 9001-0 and 071-101-8502-0. And this is near the northeast corner of Beebe and Kennedy Road in the town of Cottage Grove, this within the village's extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is why we're hearing about it or talking about it tonight. Aaron, I don't know if anybody from, doesn't appear they're on.
See Christine online. I'm not sure if that's the same Christine from MSA.
Maybe somebody else.
Not, I mean, this is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I think we even kind of saw this when they came through the first time. It's just a continuation of the first phase of the plat. It's already been through the process with the town and I think is in process with the county. I ran this by the fire chief and EMS chief, just to make sure they saw it when the town saw it or see if they had any comments, and I didn't hear back from them, so I assume they do not. The only conditions I would recommend are just correcting the approval certificate on page 2, which references the town instead of the village. Just need to fix that. And then just confirming, by our ordinance, we can allow lot sizes less than an acre in the ETJ area if the town also does, which it sounds like they're in support of that, but just want to make a note of that.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions, comments from commission members?
I have a comment. I just find it ironic that the town is able to make road connections on their own subdivisions, but still don't want us to make connections from their subdivisions into ours.
Thanks, Don. Any other comments?
Can I ask, has the developer consulted with the school district to make sure that it doesn't cause any issues with the school? A common question they ask anytime we do anything like this.
I don't know if they specifically did, but Matt and I and JJ, before he left, did meet with the new school superintendent, and they did indicate their favor of adding more development and adding more students that are in the district. They do have room. They bring a lot of students in from outside the district, so if there's more from inside, they would just bring less from the outside.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments or discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request as presented on the listed parcels with the edit that Aaron suggested.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, next we have a concept presentation from Lakewood Development regarding a potential residential project on parcels. There's a whole list of them on there. I'm not going to read them. They're in the packet. And this is again for feedback from Plan Commission. No action is planned for the meeting, so.
I can just jump in before Tom and Jake start. We did see this once before.
Yep.
There's a little bit different version of it. They've made some changes, and that's why they're coming back for more input.
Okay. I don't know if your mic's pressed yet. Should be, yep, you are. You're good.
Great.
Now they can hear you on Zoom.
Good. Good evening. Yeah, thanks for having us back and seeing you guys all again. So we heeded some feedback both from just the general community and our builder partners, and so we've tweaked the plans to still addressing the missing middle of housing, but opening it up demographic wise. We're still having a section of 55 plus age targeted, but around that making an all age section as well. So the whole kind of concept plan we came up with was our job is to put forth what we think is the most optimal plan that serves what the community needs are, and just based on feedback that we've gotten, that there's definitely a need for an all age and family, first time home buyer as well. So hence kind of the adjustment and the change, but we're still kind of within that. The orange is where kind of the age targeted section will be, and it'll be kind of a sub HOA, maintenance free living, etc. Kind of the parks layout is still the same, but here this mix of product, both single family detached, there's an attached villa series as well. In addition to townhome, will serve an even kind of broader demographic and price point and staging. And so, really this community is something where, someone living in Cottage Grove can, who grew up here can buy their, first home and can buy their retirement home. And so that's kind of what we're putting forth here. We just felt that, in getting feedback, kind of the last concept we had was a bit too narrow, serving the 55 plus. So that's kind of where we're landing here. And this is, again, still, efficiently planned and designed so that, we are serving that kind of missing middle of housing that, we think is really needed in the community.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I mean, I know the village has been looking into, housing demand studies and additional units that need to come online, and, some of the consideration as to how much rental product has come into the area, and looking for, how can we solve kind of this missing middle demand and gap for where people want to buy homes and want to own and be a part of home ownership and not just a renter for life. So we think that this really solves both the demand for the consumer and also just kind of, what everybody's looking for in the surrounding village area. So,
In addition, we've, kind of laid it out with expansion in mind. We've kind of got the public road here that runs north and south that we've talked about with Aaron and Matt and Josh quite a bit. So, we really are kind of trying to think about, how does this fit now, but also kind of fitting in with the expansion for the future.
So I guess, any questions, Aaron, or anything you think would be worth touching on? I know we've been meeting with Strand quite a bit on the lift station side of things and how that kind of all feathers into the development timeline, but happy to touch on anything else here.
Should be mentioned it, last time this was more of a gated community, this time it's not.
Yeah, more traditional, with kind of, obviously neighborhood feel, but public streets and, again, more of a traditional subdivision in that sense.
Yeah, we kind of heeded the feedback of, last time it was, just think that makes more sense. It's just more simple conceptually for everyone to wrap their head around.
It's a little hard to see, but they do have the bike path continuing up, kind of along the western edge there and along the main street, continuing to the north.
Yep.
The village would make the connection down to Glacial Drumlin as part of the lift station project. Come down to the lift station.
Aaron, your mic is off. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, Troy. Thank you. So just to repeat, the bike trail is part of the plan here going up along the western edge. The village would continue that down to the new lift station and then cut over and down on along Heather Drive and down to the bike path, down to the Glacial Drumlin bike path. Personally, I'm a little more comfortable with this mix. I thought it was a little bit heavy having it be all 55 and over, so I think this would fill up a little faster. And as they said, this is timed nicely in with the lift station project that our utilities are looking at.
I guess my first initial question, what's kind of your thoughts on the timeline? You've got 491 units here. Are we talking like 50 a year or over 10 years, or what are we thinking?
Yeah, so just in terms of timeline, we're hoping to, I guess if all else equal, kind of moving through next stages, we'd hope to kind of start mass grading kind of sometime in July, and then, with the first homes being delivered sometime in March of 26, is kind of the target timeline. And, ideally, 70 to 120 homes a year, just kind of give or take with bringing out the crystal ball on kind of what demand looks like. But I'd say something in that target range, and I think that's kind of lined up with, I think everyone's familiar with the Dane County study and kind of what's needed for the area. It's somewhere in that kind of range.
And then do you guys already have thoughts on the price points for these, or too early to tell?
Yeah, I mean, it's early, but, you know, generally starting, you know, the bulk of the project's probably gonna be starting in the 3s, 4s, and some starting in the 5s, but again, most of that project, you know, if you look at kind of new homes where they're at now, that's kind of, you know, addressing, you know, where AMI is at for the community, kind of, I'd say the middle and below, that price point. So, and again, you know, depends, you know, what, a couple of the components with the lift station and kind of impact fees and engineering costs, and ultimately what this gets bidded out, but that's just kind of initial flavor. So.
And then traffic is usually a question when this property comes up. There will be a traffic study that they need to do because this probably will have a little more traffic than it would have if it was just senior housing. So that'll be part of it, looking at, you know, what's the impact at Taylor and Main Street and,
That was my question.
Yeah, we've done some preliminary, you know, preliminary work on that, you know, based on what our traffic engineer has said. We, you know, like Aaron said, we'll have to do an official study, but, he said he would be surprised if there was a need for any sort of signal or anything like that, any kind of major changes based on kind of initial findings, on peak, both morning and evening. So that was just, you know, a quick, conclusion from our traffic engineer, but obviously we'd run a full study for that.
And then how many units are 55 years and older?
So,
There's about 100 units or so of
Yeah.
age targeted, within that neighborhood. And that's kind of just in the middle, in that 40-foot wide product.
Yeah.
and I think, you know, there'll be some overlap too on kind of, you know, some of the more efficient lots in the 140 units too. You might have some downsize age, but it won't be age targeted. It'll just, but I think we'll still serve that population, you know, more of the percentage than just the 100.
So one tweak we may want to look at is exactly where that street continues to the north. We may want it a little closer to the corner just to give us more options on which property it could continue through on. There's also a hill at the corner. We'd have to figure that out too, but.
Yeah, and some wetlands in that prairie, I know as well, so it can
Yeah.
get tricky based on conversations that we had kind of on the.
Yeah, and we'll dive into it. We looked into it a bit further, just with that property that's north west there. There is some wetlands, which might be a problem with Carp C.
Then they are bringing this to the Parks Committee next week, so Heidi
Yep.
gets to see it again, just for their feedback, because these are now 2 public parks, whereas the previous version had more of a private amenities on some of the parkland. It would have to be a neighborhood meeting before they submit.
Is there still any part of this that's quote unquote a gated community, or has that been eliminated?
Yeah, there'll be no gate anymore at this stage.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
I think these are good changes, and I like the opportunity of all the different types of housing and some age restricted. So I think these are good improvements, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes in the next steps.
Great, thanks.
My only
And has
concern.
the school district, oops, go ahead, Don.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Troy. I just don't want to see the townhomes turning into rental. I'd like to see them owner occupied and not all of a sudden we come back and they're rental. And I was perfectly happy with the 55 and older, but this will work as well. I know the previous project that was slated for this quite a long time ago was the kibosh was put on it because of traffic. The traffic studies they had at that time showed that they needed that northern road connection. That's it.
Has there been any discussion with the school district as far as if it's, you know, I know part of it's 55 and over, but part of it's gonna be, I'm assuming, young families, is that correct? Or open to young families, I should call it?
Yeah, a mix of both, and that's a conversation we'll plan to have and kind of reiterate kind of what Aaron had mentioned earlier as well, from the superintendent, but that, yeah, we're definitely planning on sitting down with them.
And I can add to what Aaron stated too, is that essentially the village is way behind any projections that the school district has for enrollment of kids, and the school, from at least from the staff vantage point, leadership of the school district, they would never shy away from any village development and additional residential development. They welcome it.
Thanks, Matt. It seems like the school district's kind of a shit show, pardon my French, so they don't really have the finances under control.
They need the tax base from the development, and they need the revenue for the additional in-district pupils.
So the next steps is kind of, you'll come to Parks next week, and then, you know, you work on refining designs, and then is it which
Yeah,
application?
they'll have to do a neighborhood meeting prior to submitting for any approvals. Been talking about this as a planned unit development, so that's the two-step process. It'd also be plating that happens, you know, simultaneously with that. So I think February, we're thinking
January,
about
February,
submitting.
kind of goal
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
JP submittal.
Any thoughts on where you plan to start?
Yeah, so kind of similar to the last iteration when we brought this through, was kind of starting just south of Ridge Road, which we think ties in well with the village lift station that's kind of being put in, just in terms of like utility dragging access, and then essentially run north and clockwise.
Any other questions?
John, I know we did get one email from a resident. I don't know if we covered everything. Just-
Yes, we did. That list of questions.
Just curious what that resident's email had to say.
Sure.
I didn't see a part of the packet, that's why I asked.
No, it came in late today. So they live on Forest Drive, and they were asking questions that I think have been addressed. The density, I wanted to confirm it's 491, which it is as of right now. And then they're asking about the traffic. We mentioned that there'll be a traffic study in order to figure out what the traffic counts are and what, you know, impact that will be. Asked about the time of development. Will it coincide with Amazon's operations? Does not look like it, because it's probably a 5 to 7 year time frame, from depending on how many units you do per year, with a start in March of 26. So that'll be beyond when the opening of Amazon is. Cost, and they asked about the house cost range, which you guys provided, kind of 300 to 500 at this point. And again, it's going to depend on the units, you know, that you're looking at, and obviously density and everything else. So it'll be a pretty good mix in there, I think, from that perspective. And then if somebody comes in and wants all the bells and whistles, it'll probably go north of that. So those are the three questions, Troy.
All right, thank you.
Anything else from anyone else? All right. Thank you both.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Next then, look at discuss amending the zoning ordinance related to the library parking requirements. So,
John, I'm going to jump in. I want to make a motion to table any discussion on library. Staff and resources and money should not be spent until the next library referendum results are published.
Second.
I'll second that.
Second,
Okay, we got second, third, and fourth. All right, we have a motion and a second regarding tabling the amending of the zoning ordinance. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to say that it will be difficult to get a clear picture of what it would cost the residents if we don't know what the requirements are. Just like any developer, if they want to know about the requirements in their due diligence process of building a development, they would look at the requirements and ask if we're willing to, if we're out of line with other communities, if we'd be willing to modify those or not. And so I think not giving an answer on this is unfairly treating the library compared to other development.
We don't know it's gonna be a library.
I mean, and the
Yeah,
ordinance is clear
I
on
was
what
thinking
the.
maybe a non-alcoholic dance club where you're gonna have 100 people on Friday and Saturday nights coming there. And I don't think the parking is gonna suffice, but we don't need to go down that path when we have this motion and approve it. The other thing is we can do is give Amazon their $150,000 check back as well.
I think that's outside the scope of this discussion because we're just talking about the parking requirements for a potential use of a certain property. And so if we have the potential use of a certain property, the end user would look into all the requirements that are asked of them and ask us if we would be willing to change those or not. So any end user would want to understand what the requirements are of a property before they expend additional monies to, continue their due diligence.
The ordinance was in place when the property was picked. They knew the rules when the property was picked. This is the current statutes. There's no reason to expend any additional internal resources until the results of the referendum are published.
And I think then that would send a clear message to other businesses that we are not willing to examine our ordinances unless you've already.
Unfortunately, this is a public project. That has nothing to do with other businesses. This has to do with taxpayer
If I was
money.
gonna put a dance club there, non-alcoholic, I don't think you'd even consider doing anything different with that parking. Because this is a public library BS, we wanna do something with it. We need to shut it down and shut it down quickly. We gotta quit wasting staff time and taxpayer money on something this community doesn't want. And that referendum will prove that out.
Would it be helpful for the commission to hear what the architects have to say in regards to their due diligence of the facility itself? I mean, what their thoughts are?
I mean,
27
it-
spots right now is adequate, or they think, 48 is the appropriate number, or
A lot
somewhere
of
in
these other
between?
places have on-street parking that are available. This doesn't have it either. So, to blindly pick an ordinance, I mean, at this point, the ordinance is the ordinance, and that's what they should be planning on. That's what all our developers do when they come in. They plan for the ordinances there. And if they can't fit what they want, then they can come back and ask for a change or a variance or whatever that process is. But here we're going a cart in front of the horse. So I'm not interested in spending additional staff, time and resources on making amendments for something that we don't know is going forward. This has nothing to do with approval or disapproval of the library. Again, I grew up in the library environment. My mom was, blah, 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 said the words before over and over again. This really comes down to timing, taxpayer issues, and what our team is spending their resources on. And there's a lot of things going on, and this is just not something really that we should be we're going on. We have a referendum coming up, and that'll set the tone and direction for the entire village staff of what they need to do moving forward. So.
All right, is there any other discussion on the motion to table? All right, all those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
No.
Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Item is tabled. Next then, future agenda items. Aaron, anything you want to highlight for the commission?
Yes, I didn't write them down, but it's gonna be a busy one. We had a few things coming in, so,
Busy December?
yes.
All right. We're all on pins and needles now.
Well, you mentioned ordinances. There's other things coming through that we've worked on.
Yes, if you give me a second, I can pull up the list here. But yeah, that was one of them. Dave Zilke, who has the land next to New Tech, has a different concept that he'd like to bring in front of us. I think those are the main two. There may be something.
Is there additional work with this property?
The learning letter?
No, this property, municipal hall.
Not at this time.
Okay. Just wondering if the silt fence is ever coming down. Okay.
All right.
Josh
Motion
can
to
comment on
adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your week. Did you get who? It's Fred and, did you get the motion?
Yes.
Okay.